Qua. I never imagined my life would end up like this, doing whatever I could just to keep a roof over my head. 24 I thought I'd be chasing dreams, building something that mattered. Instead, I sat on the worn-out couch in my tiny studio apartment, staring at a pile of overdue bills scattered across the coffee table. Each one a cruel reminder of how quick livings were falling apart. On top of the stack was the rent notice. Final warning was printed in bold red letters, like it was screaming at me to fix my life, for it was too late. My stomach tightened as I checked my phone again. Still nothing. No replies to the dozen-sif job applications I'd sent out. My savings were gone, and the few dollars left in my account couldn't even buy a loaf of bread. It felt like I was drowning. Rent due in 2 days. No job. No safety net. This city doesn't wait for anyone. If you fall behind, it doesn't reach out a hand. It just swallows you whole. Endlessly. I could feel it pulling Moinder. Mr. Noah, my landlord, had already left 2 voicemails. The second one wasn't a reminder. It was a warning. You're running out of time, he said, his deep voice cold and final. If I don't have the money by Friday, you're out. No exceptions. My chest tightened at the thought. I couldn't go back to my parents. They didn't have a much either, and I couldn't face them. Failure. There was no one else. I was completely cornered and completely alone. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, heavy. They stopped right outside my door. A sharp, firm knock followed. Ita didn't heed to guess who it was. Taking a shaky breath, I stood and opened the door. There he was, Mr. Noah, tall, broad-shouldered, standing with the kind-of confidence that said he was always in control. His suit was perfectly tailed, his gray hair slicked neatly back. He looked like a man who never had to worry about bills or eviction. Good evening, WilliamHesed.com, but commanding. May I come in? I hesitated, glancing down the hallway, as if someone might suddenly appear to save me. No one did, so I nodded and stepped aside. He walked in like he already owned the place, high size, scanning everything. The clutter, the unwashed dishes, the overflowing laundry basket. Heat rushed to my face in embarrassment. He turned to me, his expression. I assume you know why I swallowed hard. Yeah, about that. I'm trying. I just need a little more time. He didn't blink. Time isn't something I can give. This isn't a curity, William. I've got other tenants who pay on time. I understand, I said quickly, my voice, but I swear I'll have it. I just need a few more days. His gaze stayed cold and steady. A few days won't matter if there's no money coming. The words hit like a punch. Tears stung my eyes, and I looked away, ashamed of how powerless I'd become. I didn't know what to do, I whispered. For a moment, something flickered in his face softened, but only slightly. Desperation can be dangerous, he said quietly, almost to himself. Then stepped closer, his presence filling small room. But sometimes, he added his tones, desperation opens doors. I frowned, confused. What do you mean? Mr. Noah tilted his head. His gaze locked on mine. I'm saying, he replied carefully. There's more than one way to settle a debt. Air grew heavy, pressing against my chest. My heart pounded, my throat dry. His words carried weight, and I couldn't tell if they were a warning or something else entirely. Kita, I'm not sure I understand, I said quietly, though deep down I did. You're a smart guy, William, he said, voice low and deliberate. I think you understand exactly what I mean. The walls suddenly felt too close, the air too thin. The apartment itself seemed to close in around me. Ty stood frozen, pinned under his stare. See, I wanted to tell him to leave, to yell, to fight, but nothing came out. I was cornered and he knew it. I can't, I started, but he cut me off. You can, he said flatly. And you will, if you want to stay here. My knees weakened. I grabbed the counter. Toasted myself. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen in real life. They happened in stories, not topable like me. But looking at him, so calm, so certain, I realized this was my reality. Ty, need time to think, I managed to say, my voice barely holding steady. He nodded, the corner of his mouth curling into a faint, knowing smile. Take all the time you need, William, he said. But remember, you're running out of it. He turned and walked to the door. Sound off. It closing echoed through the room like the end of something I couldn't name. I collapsed onto the couch, staring at the eviction notice, stilling on the table. Every instinct screamed at me to find another way, to hold on to what little pride I had left. But the weight of my situation pressed harder than ever. What choice did I have? I stared at the red-lettered notice, the words burning into my thoughts as the seconds passed. No oneto call, no family to fall back on, no safety net. It felt like the world had shrunk to just this one room, and I was trapped inside it. I tried to think of options. Maybe I could reach out to an old friend, though I hadn't spoken to most of them in months. Maybe I could sell more of my things, but what was left? Couch, a mattress, a few dishes, coat. Even if I sold it all, it wouldn't come close to covering what I owed. Anything valuable was already gone, pawned off weeks ago. I paced theorem, my thoughts circling endlessly. Mr. Noah's words lingered like a shadow I couldn't shake. Every time I tried to push them away, the hopelessness dragged them back. I hated that he had this power over me, that he knew how desperate I was and was using it to his advantage. But hate didn't pay rent, and it didn't change the truth. By the time night fell, I felt completely, not physically, but emotionally, the kind of exhaustion that leaves Yaulo inside. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, staring at the dark screen. A small part of me still hoped for a message from anyone with some kind of solution. But the screen stayed empty. Finally, I couldn't take the silence in. I unlocked my phone and scrolled through Mr. Noah's old messages. At first, they were polite reminders. Then, they grew sharper, colder, until all that was left were ultimatums. My thumb hovered over his name, E. I told myself I just needed to talk, that E wasn't agreeing to anything. Maybe I could reason with him. Maybe there was still another way. But deep down, I already knew he wasn't a man wanna go. I took a shaky breath. Typed words, can we talk? then stared at the message for what felt like forever before pressing send. My stomach twisted us. The status changed to delivered. Anthon. The 3 dots appeared. He was typing. The reply came almost instantly. Come by my office tomorrow. Is it? The phone down and buried my face in me hands. The walls of my apartment seemed to close in tighter, wrapping me in a heavy silence that felt impossible to escape. When I finally climbed into bed, sleep didn't come easily, and when it did, it wasn't peaceful, just restless dreams, full of shadows and whispers. I see OULDN. Single quotes, TUNDER. Stand. I woke in a cold sweat, feeling even more exhausted than before I closed my eyes. The next morning, I moved through my routine like a ghost. Jeans, a plain shirt, nothing special. I kept repeating same words to myself. It's just a conversation, nothing more. But as I stood in front of the mirror, fixing my hair for the 3rd time, the unease wouldn't fade. Something deep in my gut told me this wouldn't be just a talk. By the time I reached Mr. Noah's office, my nerves were stretched thin. The building was old. Brick walls, creaking wooden floors, dim lights, and that faint smell of mildew that clung to everything. His office was on the 2nd floor. Waiting. Each step up the narrow staircase felt heavier than the last. Like I was climbing towards something I see OULD and single quotes TES cape. I paused outside his door, my hand hovering over the knob. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he'd hear it the moment I walked in, taking a deep breath. I knocked lightly and pushed the door open. Mr. Noah sat behind a large wooden desk, reading glasses perched on his nose as he flipped through a stack of papers. Wen looked up. A faint smile tugged at his lips. William, he said smoothly, gesturing to the chair across from him. I'm glad you came. I hesitated, then crossed the room and sat down. My hands were clenched tightly in my lap, and I couldn't meet his eyes. Thank you for seeing me, I said quietly. Of course, he replied, leaning back in his chair. I always make time for my tenants. The way he said it carried a weight that settled heavy in the air. He steepled his fingers, studying me. So, he said casually, though his tone was sharp. What can I do for you? Kai. I wanted to talk about Theron, I began, my voice unsteady. No, I'm behind. I know you've been patient, but patience has limits, he interrupted smoothly. You understand that, don't you? I nodded, unable to speak. Dick. He leaned forward slightly, high size, never leaving mine. I gave you an option, William, he said slowly. And think, we both know why you're here. Heat rose to my face, and I looked down, unable to meet his eyes. I don't know if I can go through with it, he admitted, my voice trembling. You can, he replied calmly with quiet certainty. And you will if you want, toast here. His words settled over Melik, a weight I couldn't lift. It felt as if I were being pulled into something far larger than myself, swept up in a current I couldn't fight. My hands shook as I gripped the edge of the chair. Why? I asked, my voice cracking. Why are you doing this? Expressions softened slightly, though it offered no bit. Because you need help, he said quietly. K. And I help those who need it. The words hung heavy in the air, layered with a meaning I couldn't quite grasp. He didn't have the strength to question him. He reached across the desk, hissed, pausing halfway before retreating. Take your time, he said gently. Ting. Take your time, he said gently. But remember, time is running out. That night, back in my apartment, Eeyore played the entire conversation again and again. Cats. His words echoed in my mind, louder each time I tried to silence them. I felt trapped, suffocated by thought of my own choices. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about power, control, and the painful realization that I had neither. I was caught in a situation I never bay, and he knew it. Cat. The idea of giving in made me feel sick, but the alternative felt just as hopeless. Lying in bed, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, I tried to convince myself I still had a choice, that somehow I'd find another way. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was out of options, and part of me already sensed what was to. The next day arrived far too soon. I'd barely slept, the weight of my decision pressing on me like a suffocating blanket. The apartment was painfully quiet. Every creak in the floor, every hum of the fridge felt louder, heavier, like reminders of how empty everything had become. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think, even. The things that usually distracted me, books, music, daydreams, offered no escape. Mind kept circling back to one thing, the meeting I had agreed to with Mr. Noah. I told myself there was still tomato back out, that maybe I could find another way, call someone, get help. But every time I tried to think logically, reality slammed back like a locked door. My phone buzzed constantly. Reminders, overdue bills, payment alerts. The eviction notice taped to my fridge stared at me like a challenge I couldn't answer. But I had nothing left to fight with. No job, no backup plan, no one to call. As the hours passed, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, staring at a version of me I barely recognized. My hands shook as I brushed my hair, my thoughts spiraling. How did I even get there? I chose something simple to wear, plain, clean, unremarkable. This wasn't about appearances anymore. It was about survival. By the time I reached his building, the sun was already setting, casting the city in a soft golden glow. It was strangely beautiful. Inside, the halls were quiet, polished, and modern. Everything my apartment wasn't. I felt out of place, like I didn't belong there. The elevator ride felt endless. Muted classical music drifted through the air. But instead of calming me, I tightened the knot in my stomach. At his door, I hesitated. My hand hovered over the doorbell, heart pounding so hard it hurt to breathe. Told myself I was ready for this moment, but standing there, I realized he wasn't. Part of me wanted to turn around, run back home, find some other way out. But what waited there? Cold apartment, an eviction notice, nothing. So I pressed the doorbell. The sound echoed down the hallway, and almost instantly, the door opened. Mr. No stood there in a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled neatly to his elbows. His expression was calm, a polite smile forming as he stepped aside. "William," he said. "Glad you made it." I forced a weak smile and stepped inside. The place was spotless. Tall ceilings, sleek furniture, a breathtaking view of the skyline. Everything about it felt expansive, deliberate, distant. I felt like I didn't belong there, like a flaw in Thep. "Would you like something to?" he asked, his tone casual, almost rehearsed. "Cool?" I shook my head quickly. "No, thank you." He did. Cat just nodded and motioned towards couch. I sat stiffly on the edge while he took the chair across from me. The silence was heavy, full of words neither of us dared to speak. "I know this isn't easy," he said after a moment, his voice softer now, "but I want you to understand something. You ran it alone in this." The words sounded practiced, too polished, like something said to others before me. I looked away. "I don't even know if I'm doing the right thing," I whispered. "But it feels like the only thing left." He nodded slowly, as if that confirmed something for him. "Life doesn't always give us perfect options," he said. "Sometimes we just take the ones that keep us standing." I wasn't sure if he was trying to comfort me or justify himself. Either way, it didn't help. "William," he said firmly, "look at me." Reluctantly, I met his eyes. His expression was unreadable, calm, but focused in a way that made me uneasy. "You're resourceful," he continued. "Resilient. That's what I see in someone trying to serve. Tet. And there's nothing weak about Kowand." I wanted to tell him it didn't feel like survival. It felt like but no words came out. Hested and walked to the window. His back told me, "You don't have to decide right now," he said after a pause. "Just remember, every choice has a cost." The words hung in the air like smoke. When I finally left, the city felt quieter. Back in my apartment, I replayed the entire conversation again and again. His voice echoed in my mind, each sentence twisting deeper into my thoughts. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about power, control, and the painful truth that I had neither. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I still had a choice, that somehow I could find another way. But the truth was impossible to ignore. I was running out of options. By morning, exhaustion had settled into my bones. Every sound from the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator reminded me of how empty everything had become. Cass couldn't teak, couldn't think, even. The things that distracted me, books, music, daydreams, felt meaningless. My phone buzzed again. Overdue bills, payment alerts, reminders I didn't need. The eviction notice on my fridge stared back at me like a warning I couldn't escape. The only thing standing between me and the street was a choice I didn't want to make. As the clock ticked toward evening, I stood before the mirror, trying to recognize the person staring back. My hands shook as I brushed my hair, doubt spiraling through my head. What was it? How had it come to this? I chose simple clothes. Nothing fancy, nothing to stand out. Teat didn't matter how it looked. What mattered was the decision I was walking toward, and the part of me that still hoped I could change my fate. By the time I reached Mr. Knowles' apartment, the sun was already fading, painting the city in muted gold. The building was elegant, far removed from the cracked walls of my place. Everything here gleamed. Marble floors, quiet elevators, soft music drifting through the halls. I felt like an intruder in someone else's world. His door. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the bell, heart pounding. I could still turn back, but turning back meant returning to nothing. To the silence, the unpaid bills, the eviction notice taped to my fridge. So, I pressed feeble. The door opened almost at once. Mr. No stood there in a crisp shirt, sleeves rolled neatly, his expression. "William," he said with that practiced tone, "I'm glad you come." I managed a small nod and His apartment was immaculate. High ceilings, dark furniture, glass walls that looked out over the skyline. It was beautiful, but it made me feel smaller somehow. Like I didn't belong in a space built for people who never struggled to breathe between paychecks. "Would you like something to drink?" he asked, politely. "No, thank you," I said quickly. He gestured toward the couch. He sat on the edge while he took the charappas at me. Coat. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the air conditioner. Tuve. "I know this isn't easy," he said finally. "But I want you to understand, you're not without options." The words stung. They sounded kind, but there was weight beneath them. It wasn't comfort. It was control. "I don't know if this is the right choice," he whispered. "It just feels like the only one left." He nodded slowly, as if confirming what already knew. "Life pushes us into corners," he said. "What we do next decides who we become." I lowered my gauzy to my hands, coat unable to meet high size. Every part of me wanted to run, but survival has a way of silencing pride. "William, Tinta," he said firmly after a pause. "Look at me." Reluctantly, I lifted my cues. Face was calm, almost kind, but there was a sharpness in his stare that made my skin prickle. "You're smarter than you think," he said quietly. "Resourceful, resilient. I see Simone, who's willing to fight to Tet. And there's nothing weak about." I wanted to argue, to tell him this wasn't survival, it was surrender, but the words wouldn't come. All I could do was nod. He stood and walked closer, stopping beside the couch. The air felt heavy between us. My pulse quickened, my shoulders tense. I could feel the pressure of the moment closing in, leaving no room to breathe. Relax," he said softly. "This doesn't have to be difficult," but it was. Every instinct in me screamed to leave, to get up Toran, but I couldn't move. I was frozen, caught in a situation I didn't fully understand. When I finally walked out of that apartment later, everything felt different. The air, the light, even my own thoughts. The world looked the same, yet nothing felt normal anymore. Back home, I scrubbed the counters, the floors, anything to clear my head, but silence only grew heavier. My rent was paid, but the cost echoed in ways I couldn't name. A week later, I was lying on my couch, staring at the ceiling. The envelope of money sat untouched on the table, a reminder of everything I wanted to forget. I hadn't spent a cent. The thought of using it made me sick. I needed to change something, anything. Grabbed my phone and started scrolling through job listings. One after another. Nothing promising. Nothing that paid enough. The more I looked, the more hopeless it felt. With a sigh, I tossed the phone as a dent, stared out the window. The city lights flickered like they were mocking me. Just as I was about to give up, the phone buzzed. It was him. My chest tightened as I read the message. William, hope you're doing well. Q's, just checking in to see if you've thought about what we discussed. Mufer, still stands. Let me know if you need anything. I stared at the words, my grip tightening. The nerve of it, the casual tone, the assumption that I'd come running back. But worse than the anger was the flicker-off temptation. That small, quiet voice whispering, it's still an option. I hated myself for even thinking it. But the truth was, I was exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally. Still, I knew one thing for certain. You couldn't let him hold power over me again. That night, I made a decision. I'd find another way, no matter how long it took, no matter how hard it got. The next morning, I started over. I called temp agencies, reached out to old contacts, and filled out every online application I could find. Signed up for delivery work, offered to walk dogs, even thought about donating plasma. Because at that point, survival wasn't just about paying rent anymore. It was about reclaiming who I was. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't easy, but it was something. A step forward. Every day felt like clawing my way out of a pit, inch by painful inch. But I kept going. I held on to the promise I'd made to myself. I wouldn't fall back into that trap again. Slowly, things began to shift. That envelope from Mr. Noah sat untouched, on the counter, silent, heavy, a reminder of the price I'd already paid and the vow I'd made, never to pay it again. I wanted to be free. Free from him. Free from the shame that clung to me like Asacon's skin. Then one evening, as I was closing the cave, a woman approached me. She looked at Toby in her 50s with kind eyes and a warm smile. You're William, right? I nodded. I've seen you here a lot, always working so hard. My sister runs a small office downtown, and I think she might have a position that could be perfect for you. Would you be interested? My heart jumped. Yes, I said instantly. I'd love to hear more. She handed me a business card. Call her, she said. Tell her I sent you. I can't promise anything, but it's worth a shot. I thanked her, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. It wasn't aguarante, but it was enough to keep me going. The next day, I made the call, set up interview, and spent hours. I wanted to give it everything I had. When the day came, I walked into that office with my head held high, determined to take back control of my life. The interview went well, and by the end of the week, I got the call. They offered me the job. It wasn't a dream position, and the pay wasn't great, but it was enough. Enough to survive. Enough to begin again. It was a fresh start, as I settled into my new routine. The memory of that dark chapter began to fade, not disappear. Some wounds take time, but it no longer had power over me. First time in months, I started to feel like myself again, stronger, more determined. Looking back, I'm still not proud of what I went through, but I am proud of the choice I made to fight for better. Desperation can push people right to thiege, and survival, sometimes it comes at a cost. But through it all, I discovered something I never believed. I was stronger than I thought. In the end, I didn't need anyone to rescue me. I saved myself, and that was a victory worth holding on to. So, note that, you've heard my story. I'm curious. What do you think? Was it the right choice? Did I even have a choice at all? Tell me, Ketty, what would you have done in my place? Because honestly, even now, I still don't know if I should feel guilty. Maybe your perspective can help understand. Thank you.